Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Reflect and Revive. My name's Naomi Bussinger. Today we are going to be talking about Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. We're going to be focusing on a little different aspects of it than normal, but I think it's pretty interesting. And of course, before I get started into the story, we're going to look at a little bit of history. Jericho is regarded today as the oldest city in existence. And why that is because the number of tells that have been located on its site. Now, when we went to Israel earlier this year, we learned what a tell was, and it's pretty cool. It's spelled T-E-L-L, just like the word tell. And basically what happens is when a society comes in and develops on a land, and that is destroyed either by natural disaster or war, and they no longer live there, that is called a tell. Another society comes, another people group comes, they rebuild on top of it. Same thing happens, it's destroyed. That's tell number 2, and so on and so forth. So if you were to go to Jericho today, there are many tells there. Jericho was known during this time period as the impenetrable fortress. And I have a few statistics written down here that archaeologists have been able to piece together so you know kind of what the Israelites were up against. So in the middle of Jericho, well, not quite in the middle, but there was this embankment. And in front of this embankment was a retaining wall. The retaining wall, at the base of it was the wall was 12 to 15 feet high, stone. On top of that was this mud brick wall that was 6 feet deep. Not tall, 6 feet deep. On top of that was more mud brick that they say is anywhere between 20 and 26 feet high. And just on the crest of the embankment, right outside that retaining wall, was another mud brick wall that was between 46 feet above the ground. And this was looming over the Israelites. And you can imagine like hearing about it, but seeing it in person had to be intimidating for the Israelites. See, they had just come out of the wilderness. They're finally stepping foot into Canaan, into the promised land. And they were coming up on Jericho. They were getting ready to take over their first city. And I'm sure, again, seeing those walls was intimidating. But they weren't the only ones intimidated. See, their reputation had preceded them. The stories of the Israelites and their God and how powerful he was preceded them. People had already heard about them. We know this from the story of Rahab. Before they attacked Jericho, they sent in spies. And Rahab had grown up as a young girl hearing the stories of the Israelites and their God. And I think that is why she was so quick to have faith in him and to be willing to hide the spies. And that's how she found favor in the eyes of the Lord, because there was no doubt that God was real. She'd spent her whole life praying to gods that never answered any prayers. Of course the Israelites' God was real. They parted the Red Sea, delivered them from Egypt. So the Israelites may have been intimidated by these walls. It may have seemed impossible to break through, to actually penetrate and get into Jericho. But I think in many ways, the Israelites seemed impossible to the people of Canaan. There had to be moments of fear. How are we ever going to defeat these people? Look at what their God has already done for them. But nonetheless, the Israelites get to Jericho, and I'm sure that they're ready. They're amped up. They're making an incredibly smart move. And Jericho was in the middle of that area. So by taking over Jericho, they were cutting off the northern Canaanite territory from the southern Canaanite territory. They were cutting off the trade route that ran right through Jericho, east to west and north to south. And they were cutting off a natural water supply. Smart move. They get there though, and this is completely opposite, I think, of how they anticipated it would go. God told them, I want you to walk around the city of Jericho once a day for 6 days. And after that, on the 7th day, I want you to walk around it 7 times. And after the 7th time, I want you to have all your warriors shout, and I want you to have your priests blow their trumpet. Excuse me. Now, hindsight's 2020. We all know what happens. But can you imagine the amount of faith that it would take for you to hear God say that's how you're going to get into this huge fortress? You're not going to use your usual methods. You're not going to do war the way you normally would. I need you to trust me. And on the Canaanite side, I'm thinking psychological warfare. I'm thinking this had to be creepy. In the culture during that time, whenever there was an enemy outside your gates, the men inside up on the wall would hurl down insults to the opposing army soldiers down there, and vice versa. The guys on the ground would hurl up insults to them. But God said, not only do I want you to just walk around this city once every day, I want you to do it in complete silence. So here are the Israelites whose reputation has preceded them with a super powerful God, and they are just walking in silence around your town. How would you feel? Oh man, I think that'd be weird. But God knows what he's doing. He does. And they had the faith to follow his wishes, to follow his desire beautifully, because the walls fell down on that 7th day. After the trumpets were blown, after the men shouted, the walls fell down. But the amazing part is archaeologists have found, even though the walls should not have fell the way that they did. Listen to this. This is Joshua chapter 6, verse 20. So the people shouted when the priests blew the trumpets. And it happened when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat. Then the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. The wall fell down flat, and the people went up into the city. What archaeologists have discovered is the way that the wall fell, it made a perfect ramp for them to walk right into the city. What's the big deal about that? The very thing that seemed so impossible, the very enemy, the walls, whose reputation preceded it, everybody knew Jericho was the impenetrable fortress. The very thing that they probably tried to pray out of their way was the very thing that God used to catapult them, to deliver them, to escort them into the next season of their life. Those walls fell down and enabled them to just walk right into that city. It says, then the people went up into the city, every man straight before him. There was no struggle to get into the city. They walked right up into it. And they were able to walk on the thing in which they were trying to get rid of, on the thing in which they thought was impossible. So I ask you today, what things in your life seem impossible? What are these things that you keep coming up against that you're trying to pray away? Just want to ask you, analyze your prayer life. Are you praying for things to go your way? Or are you praying for things to go God's way? Are you willing to surrender control to him? Think about the Israelites in this situation. Do you think that they would have ever thought that they would be putting down their sword and picking up maybe a walking stick, a trumpet, and just walking? No, it was so out of the norm for them. But look at what God did. He delivered them, just like he will with you. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's a little different perspective. If you are facing something that seems impossible, God will deliver you. If you need prayer, if you need someone to join you in prayer to get through this time that you're going through, find someone. Message me, message any of the leadership group at CPR. We would love to pray with you. Love to. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and we'll see you at church tomorrow. Bye.